Philadelphia 76ers fans were over the moon last year when they managed to trade up to the first pick in the draft and select Markelle Fultz. The combo guard out of Washington was predicted to be one of the best young guard prospects to come out of college in years. But he succumbed to one of the strangest series of injuries over the course of his rookie season. Fultz went from having damaged shoulder muscles that were keeping him out to being diagnosed with some kind of shooting yips. He returned towards the end of the regular season, but only took one three-point attempt for the entire year. And this was all after shooting over 40% from deep in college, and it being one of the most tantalizing skills he possessed for the draft process. NBA fans were worried about Fultz and whether he would regain his shooting stroke. Philadelphia fans remained confident on the outside, but I imagine that even they were worried slightly. But it appears that they may have been vindicated, with famous NBA trainer Drew Hanlen coming out and saying that Markelle will be an all-star this season and that he has fixed his jump shot over the course of the summer. If Markelle could put together this kind of season and this kind of play, it could help take the 76ers to a completely new level, one where they could challenge the Raptors and the Celtics and potentially make it to the NBA Finals. This video will examine Markelle Fultz as a player, the kind of potential that he still has, as well as taking a look at what the effects of him playing at this level would be. There is no denying that Markelle had a rough start last season, but he only played in 14 games and only played a total of 253 NBA minutes. This small sample size is good for Fultz for two reasons. It means that he didn't have time to develop a rhythm in game last season, and that it isn't a big enough sample size for it to be conclusive of his talents in the NBA. And there were some other huge positives from last season just from a statistics level. Fultz averaged 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists per 36 minutes last season. These numbers are great outside of the shooting and indicate that even without a jump shot, Markelle can break down defenses and get into the paint. The other thing of statistical significance was Fultz's last game of the regular season. It was the first time all year that he played over 25 minutes in a game, and he absolutely turned it on. He scored 13 points, grabbed 10 boards, and dished out 10 assists in just over 25 minutes as he became the youngest player to ever record a triple-double in NBA history. These last 10 games of the regular season was where we got the best look at Fultz as an actual prospect. He was clearly limited as he did not shoot from 3 and hardly shot from the mid-range, but he still managed to score and dish effectively. This is incredibly impressive as defenses would have known this and played Markelle accordingly. They sagged off of him and dared him to shoot the ball. But Fultz still found ways to get past these ready defenders and into the lane. So how does he do this? It's because Fultz has one of the best acceleration and deceleration speeds I've seen in a young guard, and he reminds me of James Harden in this way. When he moves in the half court, he appears to be in slow motion, and this lulls the defender into a false sense of security. When this defender gives Fultz the smallest of openings into the lane, he is off to the races, accelerating into the space at an alarmingly fast rate. Markelle combines this burst of speed with his incredibly long arms and handle. This handle allows him to put the ball further away from him and still be in complete control and causing defenders to reach unnecessarily. His crossover is also vicious because it covers so much distance, and Fultz maintains his balance so well while executing it. The last trademark move that Markelle employs to attack players off of the dribble is his spin move. Fultz has already mastered what is one of the hardest moves for a guard to execute off the dribble. At full speed, Markelle will plant his foot on the outside of the paint and then rip towards the middle of the paint, leaving his defender trapped behind him. What is even more impressive is his ability to do this off both feet and in both directions. He also comes out of the spin with great composure and hits a high percentage of the shots he takes off of the spin, as well as passing to open players when defenders come over to help. But perhaps where Fultz was best last season was in the open court in transition. Markelle found himself helping out on the rebounds a fair bit with the bench unit, and when he did, he would absolutely take off in transition. Fultz has a fantastic handle in transition and is one of the quickest players in this setting. He would push the pace and get into the lane where he could attack unsettled defenses. And the beautiful thing about transition for Fultz was that there was no need for him to have a jump shot. It was a layup or dishing to a trailer or a wing runner almost every single possession. And all of this production was in limited minutes and without the threat of a jump shot. This season, Fultz will be back to shooting and he will be a much more complete player because of it. When he gets the ball in his hands, players will have to come up to him on the three-point line and won't be able to sag off him due to his improved jumper. It will also allow him to simply pull up and shoot when he drives and create separation with one of his many moves. But the biggest benefit to Fultz will be his ability to play off ball. Despite his good play towards the end of the season, Fultz wasn't really able to play alongside Simmons as much as the team would have liked, as due to his shooting woes combined with Ben Simmons, it created way too many spacing problems as teams could come off both of them to help out in the paint. If Markelle can shoot around 35 to 40% of his wide open jump shots from 3, then he will suddenly be able to play alongside Simmons a lot more. This is huge for his development, as it will open up the lineup possibilities that Brett Brown can employ and therefore give Fultz more overall minutes. I wouldn't be surprised to see Fultz in the starting lineup on opening night if he can prove his shooting and overall play in training camp. If he was to start though, who would he replace? The 76ers starting lineup of Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Robert Covington, Dario Saric, and Joel Embiid was fantastic last season, and moving any of them to the bench would be a tough decision. I think Covington's value as a shooter and a defender relies on being surrounded by the best creators, and I wouldn't move him to the bench for this reason. So it really comes down to JJ Redick or Dario Saric, and for similar reasons to Covington, I would want to keep Redick with the starters, and this leaves Dario Saric as the odd man out. And I think he is the player who will ultimately make the move to the bench next year for Fultz. Dario had a fantastic season last year as he averaged 14.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 2.6 assists a game while shooting a fantastic 39% from deep. It seems cruel to relegate such a talented young player to the bench, but I think that it makes sense from a balanced perspective, especially on the defensive end. With Dario, Embiid, and Simmons on the court together, the 76ers were absolutely huge, and it forced Philly to have to guard with one mismatch on the court when teams played regular-sized lineups. By slotting in Fultz, the 76ers would have Embiid guard centers, Simmons guard power forwards, and then Covington and Fultz could guard wings, while Redick takes the point guard. This lineup is also balanced in terms of shooting, and I think that Fultz would be fantastic to run in transition with Embiid and Simmons. Redick and Covington were great in trailing in transition and getting out onto the wings to shoot threes, but they weren't as strong finishing on cuts in transition. Fultz will be able to do this as he flanks Simmons bringing the ball up. He'll also be able to bring the ball up himself, with Simmons and Embiid trailing him in transition. Ben is especially scary when he gets to run out on the fast break. He's lightning fast and breaks out in front of packs and simply needs someone to lob him the ball in order for him to finish. Moving Saric to the bench will be tough, as Dario struggled immensely when he was brought off the bench to start last season. But I think with 2 solid seasons behind him, he'll be able to make the adjustment and play well with the bench unit. It'll also give him the opportunity to have the ball in his hands more and create off of the dribble and in the post. Dario is a very creative scorer and passer, and if he played in the starting lineup with Simmons, Fultz, and Embiid, he would likely be relegated to a spot-up shooter on most possessions. Moving him to the bench would allow the team to make use of his fantastic creation skills and ensure there is still balance on the court in both the starting and bench lineups. But there is also the chance that Fultz comes off the bench to start the season and the 76ers make him earn his spot through strong play. This could be quite likely, as it would probably make whoever was relegated to the bench feel like they at least had the opportunity to keep their spot. But realistically, it would just be a matter of time, because despite his injuries and woes last year, there was a reason that Fultz was taken first overall in one of the best draft classes in recent history. He's a fantastic slasher, off-ball cutter, passer and driver who, if he regains his shooting ability, will be able to cause serious mayhem for the weaker Eastern Conference. Markelle was also decent on defense and used his length to disrupt players and get into the passing lanes in his limited minutes last year. And as discussed, his presence on the starting lineup will create a more balanced defensive unit for the 76ers. He'll also give Philadelphia the ability to close out games with a lineup of Simmons, Fultz, Covington, Saric, and Embiid. I wouldn't be surprised to see them use this lineup against bigger teams and when they have the lead already. JJ Redick is fantastic for closing out games with his shooting, but with every season he becomes more of a defensive liability and teams simply put a man on him in the post and go to work. And this could be deadly when trying to maintain leads. One of the things that will be interesting to watch this season is when Fultz is playing with Embiid. The two hardly played together at all last season, and Embiid is one of the biggest forms of gravity on a basketball court. Joel setting screens for Markelle will open the game so much for him, and Embiid will also present an easy options for assists in the paint and on open jump shots. The Philadelphia 76ers should be incredibly fun to watch next season, and there is no doubt in my mind that they will be a 50-win team. They also look to have quite a deep bench this season, with Wilson Chandler, Mike Muscala, Jonah Bolden, and Zaire Smith all being interesting additions to go along with TJ McConnell and Amir Johnson, and whoever sits of Fultz, Redick, or Saric. The 76ers should be an absolutely elite defensive team as they have been in the past few seasons. The one area of the game that Brett Brown will have to focus on is the turnovers, as his freeform motion offense involves a lot of passing, and the 76ers have gotten turnover happy at times and led the league in the amount of turnovers last season. If they can tighten this up while maintaining their scoring ability, they'll be one of the most dangerous two-way teams in the entire competition. The depth of that team, combined with two likely all-stars in Simmons and Embiid, will have them in the top 3 of the East alongside the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. But there is only one true wildcard on the team, Markelle Fultz, and fans from around the league will be tuning in to see how well he plays. If he plays as well as can be expected from a number 1 pick in one of the best drafts, it could put the 76ers right up there for the best team in the Eastern Conference. He gives Philadelphia an extra edge, and teams won't just be able to sag off Simmons in the playoffs. They'll be able to throw Fultz the ball in these situations and ask him to create instead. And it could be the difference the 76ers need to make the NBA Finals. But there is a whole season to be played between now and the playoffs, and I personally just hope Fultz makes it through healthy and proves the doubters wrong. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. And let me know in the comments what you think of Markelle Fultz and the 76ers for this upcoming season.